but I'd like to believe still that Santa is somewhere out there.
I would absolutely agree with you. That's entirely my position as well. Not just on him, but on a load of other things. All the things that are. I mean, I think there is an interesting inversion. The things that we are told do exist that we have to believe in. I would agree with you. I think the majority of our audience are at least skeptical on that. And then the things that we're not supposed to believe in. Oh, right. Yes, thank you. So we're going to a commercial break. The things that we're not supposed to believe in, I think, by and large, I probably do. Yeah. Loch Ness Monster. Absolutely. It's there somewhere. Haven't seen it.
I like your jersey, Charles.
Thank you.
It's got that Love Actually vibe going.
Yes.
Mike, I like your Grinch vibe.
Bah humbug.
Yeah. I should point out that my jumper was given to me. I did not select or purchase it myself. I should just make that clear at the outset, but I was given it by a very kind and special person. So lucky me.
That you call it a jumper.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, I mean, I'm not British. That's a very British thing, isn't it?
A jumper, because it's cold.
Well,
that style that you've got going there.
It could be a bit of a stretch. What do you mean? Sort of slightly tasteless patterns in
I've only ever seen it on British movies. I've never seen anybody in real life wear something like that.
I don't know. I think at this time of year, Americans are also prone to wearing such things. I'm only saying that because I think wasn't it in Trains, Planes and Automobiles that John Candy wore a similar
yes,
jumper?
actually, that's true.
I might be confusing that with something else, but I think there is a type of American man in particular that would wear a jumper a little bit like this. But that's probably it. You're right. I'm not sure that anyone else does in the rest of the world.
Is this going to be the theme of this program, that we go around all the various nationalities and slag them off? Is that what we're doing today?
Well, since we've premised everything on Christmas, what is your general view on it? Is it just some kind of commercialization racket? I mean, that is pretty much what it is, but there is a sense of joy which I think is very difficult to replicate, particularly where kids are concerned.
Do you want Mike to answer that? Yes.
Yeah, either or.
I think. Okay. On the. I don't mean it's not cynicism. It is just an appraisal of the reality of it. Yes, I'm afraid to say it is and has become more and more of a commercial onslaught, and in every respect. And I was just thinking how, part of it is the forced indulgence, the idea that, it's Christmas, so you just stuff yourself with all sorts of things that
the experience of the last 24 hours, Charles, is that
I may or may not be, but let's put that to one side. And the thing is that you're sort of conditioned into it. So you have an enormous amount of this, that, and the other. And then what happens in January? Actually, they're trying to push it through now. But the idea that there's a sort of an epidemic of flu in particular, or some condition that's supposedly a contagion, when in actual fact you think, well, what's everyone been doing for the last 2 weeks? Drinking too much, eating too much of the wrong stuff, staying up late, basically abusing themselves in a way that they wouldn't ordinarily, not to that extent. And actually, who cleans up? The pharmaceutical industry in that particular respect, or, of course, gyms with all the memberships as people convince themselves that they're going to take exercise and this, that, and the other. So there absolutely is a sort of sad element to it, I think, where people do flog themselves and then end up paying for it whilst convincing themselves that it's all fun at the time. So I don't mean to sort of put a downer on it, but no, I hope that a lot of people really do get the joy out of it. And I don't mean that in this sort of sense of the true meaning of Christmas, because I'm afraid to say that I think is lost on the vast majority of people. But what I am absolutely in favour of is people having that time to spend, in consideration of things that they wouldn't ordinarily be thinking about. And if they've got a long enough period to do that, which I'm afraid a lot of people haven't, because the crazy sort of work environment is such that so many industries now either remain open for the whole period or people get very, very limited time. I mean, why on earth, unless you absolutely have to for some very compelling reason, why do people have to work between Christmas and New Year? It's always seemed completely insane to me. And, as though it is a deliberate attempt to jeopardize the quality of family life. I mean, I think if everywhere, I think I've said this before, but I really do fervently believe that if we shut the country down for 2 weeks, that we would live in a better world. People would absolutely be refreshed and reinvigorated. And I think that, generally we'd have a lot less drama. I can't substantiate that because look how lockdown went. But and obviously I don't mean it like that, but I just mean people downing tools and just not having to concentrate on either consuming absolutely everything in terms of buying or eating or drinking, but also just just having the time to reflect and wind down.
Which is why we are shutting down tomorrow for 2 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Look, the reason why I'm asking about your views on Christmas is because I, as a political cartoonist of 2 decades, have been consumed by cynicism and sort of pessimism and a negative outlook on all things, because it's just a perpetual cycle of criticism. That's what makes humor, unfortunately. But as you get older and you get kids, you kind of realize that you want any excuse for some joy.
Like everything, Jerm, it is what you make of it, and it all depends on your attitude to it and to everything. I mean, some people seem to dread Christmas because when they get together as a family, they end up fighting, at war with each other. Yeah, and what's the point? So just don't get together under those circumstances. But for us, I think it is. Many people are living in away from where they grew up and from where the base of their family is, and it's good to go back and just chill for a little while, as Charles says, and reflect.
I think the only thing I find funny about it, was a bit of a shame, is that on the sort of coming together thing, is why people don't make more of an effort to do it more often. And okay, not for such an extended period of time, but for example, we had our church carol service last weekend at home. It was lovely, it always is every year. It's great. It goes very well. It's it's a very sort of small rural community, but the church is always packed for the carol service. And I'm not trying to ram the Church of England's message down anyone's throat, but that is not why people go to a carol service. But why, given the amount of pleasure that people do get from that, why do they not turn up to either that or something else on a more regular basis? And I think that's the shame of it, is people seeing the joy that is created by coming together for what's regarded as a positive reason and to catch up and this, that, and the other. And yet, for the remainder of the year, people just vanish, disappear, and that's the end of it. And I think, I'm sure what I'm describing is absolutely played out up and down the land, certainly in the smaller communities. And I do think that is a great pity, especially with the way in the UK, the way that the economy has evolved, and now for an awful lot of small towns and villages, actually a church is perhaps the only thing that's left that could be a focal point. Pubs have gone, sort of community halls, community centres have gone, and therefore there is only a church. And I think people get put off thinking, oh, well, that's not really my thing. Forgetting, of course, that the thing really should be the people in it. And it's really up to you as to whether you want to engage any more than that. But this sort of speaks to the whole point. Well, the process of isolating us and separating us. This is one part of it, and I know we've talked about the Church of England quite a lot. I think necessarily so. And when one considers the sort of cock up or conspiracy element of it, has the Church of England pushed people into such a terrible place, or pushed itself into such a terrible place with this specific intent? In order to disrupt community life. I mean, I don't know, but it is an obvious consequence of the disaster that the Church of England has become, in particular, I would say.
I would say the church as a whole, actually, not just the Church of England.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Fair enough. I think that's no, that's true.
I'll chat you guys about some of the shows that I've done for UK Column this year that have had a big impact on me, or some impact on me, and I'm going to see if you guys can relate. And I think one of the very first shows that I did was with Jobst Landgräber about AI not taking over the world, and that really influenced me in a significant way, because I had never thought of AI in the way that he explained, and that it was just a series of algorithms with human engagement and interaction, and it has no will or desire, so it can't possibly ever take over.
I think that there's a lot to be said for that. However, it's not entirely our own choice. I think I'm actually extremely pessimistic about the economic impact that AI is going to have very, very quickly now, actually, because undoubtedly it is developing extremely fast. And actually, when Jobst was giving that interview, even since that point, it has developed extremely quickly. And I think that the issue here is that the corporate entities that provide so many people with their economic foundation are looking at AI with dollar signs in their eyes, and they're actually looking very seriously at how quickly they can get rid of their human employees, because AI is so much less expensive and doesn't require the same kind of management and so on. And I think that very, very quickly we're going to see a large rise in unemployment in the Western world. And I think that companies are going to overstep because they're going to think, they're buying into the BS of AI, and they're going to think that it's going to solve all kinds of problems for them, and they're going to overreact, and they're going to overfire people. They're going to have to hire some of those people back when they discover it's not quite what they think it is. But they're still not going to hire back the same number of people that they are currently employing. So I think it is actually going to have a very detrimental effect on many people for a period of time until we get a few things sorted out. It's not going to be an easy few years for people. That's my assessment of it. And actually, ultimately, I believe that some people have an idea of the future of humanity as just being consumers. And that's really what we saw during the lockdown period, was a pilot scheme for this. We put people on furlough schemes. And of course, if AI, robotics, if they ever get to the point that AI and robotics are doing all the sort of production side of the economy and money generation side of the economy, then they can actually afford to just hand out money in form of universal basic income. And I think that's the ultimate destination, the ultimate control mechanism. We're sitting at home vegetating on our sofas watching Netflix and other AI generated dross, and we take our money from the government, and of course we have obligations to meet in order to get that money. I think this is, we're in the UK here, the benefits, the main benefit that people get if they're on social security benefits is called universal credit. And, I think it's that name was not chosen accidentally. We are heading in that direction. So I would say that it's not a done deal, of course. And many people, we have in the UK, a large sector of self-employed and so on, and hopefully that will continue to grow, and people will find other ways to earn a living. But as far as the corporate employers go, I'm pretty pessimistic about what their view of the next few years is.
I don't think that's what he meant, though, about AI. I think he was being more philosophical in the sort of existential threat that Elon has referred to, that AI is an existential
Well, I mean, if we're
threat.
talking about the idea of artificial general intelligence, I think there is absolutely a lot of nonsense spoken about that, and so yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, My point is, I generally agree with what Jobs was presenting. I'm just trying to add another dimension to it.
I would say on the, is it taking over? I think the argument to a certain extent is a semantic one, in that exactly as Jobst and Barry articulated, it's basically told what to do by people. But the result, in effect, depending upon what the people have told it, is that it may be perceived to be taking over. So, for example, in the great brain switching off exercise, what better example? On Wednesday's news programme, I reported on the twin speeches that went out on Monday from the chief of the Secret Intelligence Service, Blaise Machiavelli, and the chief of the Defence Staff, Richard Knighton. And Knighton, not only did he admit to using AI to help him write his speech, which frankly, I can't believe, first of all, that he did it and that he admitted it. But he then went on to say that he had used AI to predict the likelihood of Russia attacking, I think it wasn't actually specifically attacking the United Kingdom, but attacking another NATO member. I mean, it's like when they tell you that there's a 17% chance of rain. Right. So it's going to rain or it's not going to rain. I mean, it doesn't matter. There might be a 95% chance of rain, but it still might not rain. I mean, it's the most crass thing. Anyway, I don't want to get too diverted by that. But the point is that Knighton had absolutely switched his brain off. He was just, splurging out what a machine had told him, and then said, "Oh yeah," and so that's about the same chance as Liverpool winning the football championship. Right, great, okay. Again, might happen, it might not. So there's that side of it. People are just stopping thinking. The other part of it, which is absolutely, associated with this, is programming it to do such and such a thing in pursuit of an objective. So, for an example, let's say, which I mean, to an extent, it will do. It runs what was called the national grid, the energy supply, and if it is programmed to conserve power or to do whatever it is, theoretically, given the amount of smart meters that people have, it would be able to, take over, let's say, and cut people off, because it would be fulfilling its task of reducing energy usage. So, I don't really know, but I think if that started to happen, or if that did happen, to intervene as a human to correct that, I think would be very difficult, because of the sort of sheer computing capability that is there. And I think if you imagine that scenario across, frankly, anything, because of course everything is controlled by computers in some way now, I think that is something that I consider to be absolutely a clear and present danger. And I would say that does go into the box of AI taking over. And the standout example from that, which I will have related before, I think, is the scenario that the American military ran with giving AI a task as a drone operator, as an autonomous drone, controlled finally by a human as to whether it was going to kill or not kill. And I forget what the specific task was. This didn't actually happen, but it was a sort of modelled exercise. And in order to complete its mission, which was the destruction of X, Y, and Z target, but that basically meant killing people, the AI calculated that the only obstacle to its progress was the human operator in the control room who had the final say on whether to kill or not kill. So the AI model tried to kill the human, because then it would be able to act unimpeded. Okay, that's an extreme example. And you could say, oh, well, that's just a programming mistake. But I mean, it does at least illustrate that it's not AI necessarily taking over. But of course, if you don't program it not to do that, then it might well end up doing that. And I think that's where we stand, because people are so utterly stupid about, thinking in this exactly the same way with with a novel pharmaceutical product. And again, I know I've made this comparison before. Why would you, after years of doing it like this, why would you immediately think, oh, I'll tell you what, someone's just invented this utterly new, completely untested way of doing it. Let's just do that. Let's put all our systems on that. This is absolute madness. And people are only going to realise this when it all goes disastrously wrong. Now, how you unpick that, I wouldn't begin to know. But I think that will be a great difficulty if that does start to happen.
Now, the comment that I was going to make about Carl Zar is that when we were in China, we had this conversation about AI taking over, and he made the point, Mike, that China has got the most automated car manufacturing industry in the world. I think he said something like over 50 or 55% or even over 60% of all car manufacturers are fully automated now. In other words, no humans. Yet there's no unemployment problem.
The question is, obviously some industries are more ripe for automation than others at this stage. Because the car industry in particular has been making use of robotics for a very long time in production lines, and so they're ahead of the curve. So I think it would be a mistake to look at that and say, well, that industry is doing this, but it's not having a major impact on employment. We have if we look at industries that require huge human resource at the moment. For example, picking fruit or vegetables, this type of thing is very, very hard to automate because for a host of different reasons. Charles can speak more about this, but obviously you've got to be able to identify which of the fruit or vegetables are ripe for picking. First of all, and also plants grow in unfortunate ways which aren't easy to automate necessarily, but people are working very, very hard to make that automation happen, to be able to make picking fruit and vegetables something which can be completely handed over to robotics. So I think it's only a matter of time as to how and when, how quickly this sort of thing happens. Of course, once they start using AI to help design these things, then that speeds the whole process up. So I think we're going to see massive change very, very quickly, and I think it would be a mistake to sort of highlight one industry that happens to be out in front and say, well, it hasn't had that much impact on the overall employment situation. That's I think just a matter of timing.
Now to jump across to another series of discussions that I had that I thought had a lot of value. I'm going to put them together in a sort of a cluster because they kind of all fit together, but that would be diet and nutrition. Now, I love that topic, and I know you also have quite an interest in it, Mike. And I think it's probably one of the most important topics actually in existence, because if you're fat and unhealthy and you get cancer, then nothing really else matters. And you can't fight any information wars if you are unhealthy. Tim Noakes was on my show. He had a significant impact on my life over a decade ago, and every time he comes on my show, I learn something new. And then related to Tim would have been my chat with Zoe Harcombe, in which she made the argument that, and I'm sorry, it's the wrong time of the year to say this, but fruit and sugar are not very good for you. And that's one that people really don't like hearing. What, you're saying that an apple a day doesn't keep the doctor away? Well, yes, that's effectively what she's saying. And then lumped in with that would be my good friend Farmer Angus with his regenerative farming, and of course Jim Gale with the whole sort of permaculture concept of growing your own food. It's just, to me, a little bit unfortunate that those topics don't really get much traction. I love them, and I'll continue chatting about them in their different guises. But I personally have gained so much value from those discussions, and I know you have also, Mike.
I have to say, I still find it bemusing that these types of topics do get so little traction, and that people aren't interested. Everybody that was taking a position on the whole COVIDocracy and takes a position on big pharma still seems to a large degree in their own mind, rely on hospitals and big pharma for their health, in inverted commas, and that the answer to a particular problem is to just deal with the symptom and get the particular drug that deals with that symptom. Because it was my experience as well. You know, I did some interviews with, you know, on the idea of trying to maintain a standard of health long into, you know, with the aim of living a healthy life until the point where you basically fall over dead, and to avoid long-term, you know, the number of people I know with massively long-term health issues, they can't walk properly, they can't actually they have no quality of life whatsoever. You know, this is something this was a direction, undoubtedly, as everybody knows, I was heading in, because I was a fat blimp. You know, it was, because I was, you know, I'm quite open about this. I was self-medicating with sugar, and I was using sugar as a source of energy and a sort of short-term high sort of thing, keep myself awake for another hour, whatever it happens to be, and was doing myself no good at all. So, you know, I have largely cut sugar out and carbs out as much as I can. I'm not going to say that I never fall off the wagon, because I do, and it is, and I would say that sugar is an addiction similar to alcohol or smoking or some of these other things. It's damn hard to break that habit. I'm not going to underestimate that for anybody. It is hard to break that habit, and you know, whatever sugar does to you, it withdrawals from it results in cravings that are really hard to deal with. So, you know, we shouldn't underestimate the difficulty of it, but it's absolutely vital, I think, for everybody to remove that from their diet as much as they possibly can, because you know, insulin resistance is a thing. Mm-hmm. It is probably the source of most people's ills, and if we change our attitude towards what we're shoving down our throats, then we probably have, you know, by default, a much better outcome. You just, you know, I'm not going to say that I have ever really been massively unhealthy, in the sense that even when I was in that physical condition, I was never required medical intervention or required going to the doctor. And I actually haven't seen a doctor in I don't know how many decades. So I'm not talking years, but decades. So, and no particular inclination to go near one. So, yeah.
Charles, I know that you also know my friend Angus, and on my UK column show, he made such a great point. When he was showing me around his farm, and he was showing me his chickens, which are truly free range, not free range TM, but, you know, they can fly away if they want, and they don't, which makes his eggs more expensive. And I asked him, okay, but now do you struggle with that? You know, that concept that your eggs are more expensive, they're more premium, therefore they're more out of reach. And he said, yes, but what is the value of your health?
Yeah, well, I mean, not just because I've got chickens, but absolutely, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's the point I do always try to make about exactly this issue. You know, the idea, or, you know, you put it the other way around, the actual cost of so-called health in this country, the budget that goes to the National Health Service compared with what goes to farming. And again, for those who may not remember, because why would you? But the National Health Service consumes over £500 million every day, and the entire farming budget for the year is only £5 billion. Now, I don't think there should be a farming budget in the first place, because I think, as Julian Rose says, subsidy creates slaves, and in effect, that is sort of where we are, why we are where we are with the ultra-processed foods. So that's a slightly separate debate. But if there was any sincerity in the government's desire to create a healthy nation, then why would you only give the farming industry 10 days worth of the drug pushing industry's income? It doesn't make any sense. Also, the food, you know, a National Food Strategy Board was convened earlier this year. what a joke. There was only one person actually involved in producing food on that strategy board, a farmer who had just stood down as, I think, the chair of the National Farmers Union sugar board. That was his role. I mean, you just couldn't make it up. So yes, I think, back to Angus and his eggs and whatnot. I mean, I think there are absolutely increasing numbers of people who do see the value, and because he spoke to me, it must have been 2 years ago now, I think, and the point he made on the sort of cost side of it was telling his workers, and I have said this before, but by weight, the steak that he produces and that they were creating and selling cost by weight less than the bags of crisps that these guys would go out and buy and sort of stuff themselves with. And actually, if, once you've got that sort of no carb, no sugar thing out of your system, if that is indeed the route you choose to go down, the amount of whatever it is you're replacing it with, if it is protein, that will keep you going for much longer. I mean, I know in a way everyone's got to find their own system that works for them, but the idea that you are priced out of changing your habits, I think is absolutely not the case. I mean, again, you have to. I can't sort of say that with any degree of certainty, because it's up to the individual as to how they actually respond to any of those changes in diet. But certainly, that's what I have absolutely found. And in fact, with two other things, if it just for people to sort of look into, I think Mike. Did you just refer to it? Sorry, I can't remember now. Insulin resistance, anyway, I think that is something that I think people should look into, because I think it is a completely misunderstood idea. And I think, again, of course they wouldn't, but for example, the National Health Service would never talk about that. Instead, what do we have? The BBC this morning talking about flipping flu vaccinations in schools. And I mean, in the interest of balance, they had two people absolutely hammering this, but one was a medic and one was a teacher. So, I mean, yeah, anyway, but the insulin resistance, I think people should absolutely look at to get an understanding of sort of what it is doing to your body, because I think that is quite a sort of jump start if you're needing that. You're needing to understand the significance of what processed foods do actually do to your body. I think that's a really important one. And the other thing I would say, and this goes back to Tim Noakes, is if anyone's wanting a book recommendation that does deal with this, but in a slightly oblique sense, but it's completely fascinating, I found. I mean, it's effectively a sort of mainstream publication, but it's called Natural Born Heroes, and it's by Christopher McDougall, who has also written the Born to Run book about the sort of anthropological basis of sort of why we are how we are as bipeds and our ability to run. But Natural Born Heroes gets to the heart of it with burning fat as fuel, which is exactly Tim Noakes' thing. But he's really interesting because he talks exactly as Tim is very candid about his conversion from having been the bloke who pushed carbohydrates and then saw the error of his ways and completely readopted his philosophy. But Natural Born Heroes deals with all of this, and it's absolutely fascinating. So anyway, there we go. Christmas book recommendation.
Well, I mean, the discussion is obviously deeper than just carbohydrates and sugar. I mean, it's a domino effect, because thanks to Tim, my dad stopped taking statins about 2 years ago, and my father-in-law for that matter, and just a few days, about a week ago, my father said to me that he stopped all of his blood pressure medication about 3 months ago. And he only told me recently. And he says he's feeling 500 times better than what he did when he was on the medication. And that's thanks to, people like Zoe and Tim, who don't just look at carbohydrates, but the actual consequences on your system that the wrong diet and, of course, the wrong medication has.
Again, well, that's the other thing, and this came up, of course, during the period where people were questioning the so-called COVID vaccines, but I think such is the grip of the pharmaceutical industry upon the sort of national or worldwide consciousness that people don't consider that if you put something into your body, it has a reaction to it. And the idea that, just taking a pharmaceutical product is, sort of has consequences beyond supposedly making you better. And it is amazing that, these long lists of, adverse effects or, the ingredients. I mean, whoever reads that? No one, when does a doctor ever say, well, make sure you read through the rubric because there might be something in there that would disagree with you or whatever. But it's quite incredible. Further, it's totally astonishing that you should ever be given more than one drug at a time. I mean, there's absolutely no way logically that your body can handle that. And and looking at the sort of the chasing the error thing. You take this, which has a side effect of that, so therefore you start taking something else in order to deal with the side effect. And yet, going back to the sort of psychological grip, people will still be thinking, oh right, that's that can't be anything to do with the drug that's making that better. So it is a huge process of sort of unlearning, if that's the right phrase to use, to really stop and consider why you are in such a state. And because you're quite right. Of course, it's not just what you're eating. There are so many other aspects to it. But until people start considering that, or have the time to sort of step back and look at it, absolutely everything. Yeah, it's very difficult. And, I remember, of course, very difficult to make those changes if you are reliant upon these things, or you think you are.
And sometimes it is simple. I remember, I think it was in 2021. 2020. I was having lunch with Tim Noakes. And at the time I was taking antidepressants because the whole COVID thing just ate me up. It just destroyed me. And I couldn't make heads or tails of what is going on, and I was just finding myself very, very depressed. And so I resorted to all sorts of medication at the time. And I was sitting opposite Tim, and I said to him, I'm taking these SSRIs. And he looked at me, and he just said, stop. And it was as simple as that. And we were talking about diet and all that, and he said, I'm going to give you some advice now, and we're going to replace all of those side effects that you're going to, sorry, not side effects. What's it when you have, when you go off it, what's the term? When you go off a drug? Withdrawals, which you obviously get from antidepressants. Yeah. He said, we're going to replace all that with gym and diet and all that kind of stuff. And that's precisely what happened. And of course, I'm a better person today as a result of that. But sometimes it really is that simple. And it just takes a bit of will.
So, I know someone very well, Jerm, that had some kind of gut issue and was diagnosed in inverted commas by the NHS as being irritable bowel syndrome, which of course is a blanket term that they use when they basically don't have a clue what the issue is. And that person went through all kinds of tests and scans and MRIs and all kinds of stuff, and they could find no particular source of the problem. Ended up being referred to a consultant, and the consultant said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put you on this antidepressant because we'll start off with a small dose. Because what's basically happening is that your gut is cramping, and this will one of the effects of this particular drug is it'll stop your gut cramping, and at that point the person said, well, I'm not proceeding in this direction anymore. They ended up going to a naturopath who decided that this person actually had a parasitic issue and used natural medicines, if we want to use that word, to deal with the parasitic problem, and the gut problem disappeared alongside it. So, I just all the health service was interested in was spending money doing scans and all kinds of things for things that were not relevant, and then attempting to put that person on on a prescription medication, which would have had, huge potential implications for, mental health and the rest, because that type of, yourself, Jerm, that type of product is absolutely not good. And the number of people that I do know a number of people that have been on those types of products, and quite, if not all cases, the comment was that this was the worst decision of my life, starting this stuff. And so I don't know anybody that's actually done well on a long-term basis if they end up taking that stuff for a longer period of time.
I think also with all these things, the biggest part of it is your psychological state and your certainty in what you're doing. And I think that it is quite incredible the power that your mind has over the way in which your body works. And as an example, I mean, personally, this is purely anecdotal, of course, but I've not taken. I mean, I've always had a sort of instinctive reaction against pharmaceutical products for one reason or another. So that's sort of by the by. But I suppose, like a lot of people who have spent time in the armed forces, painkillers become not habitually taken necessarily. Sorry, I don't mean to suggest there's some kind of issue with painkillers. What I mean is you're often in situations where you've been bashed about, and so the sort of the easy thing to do is think, all right, okay, well, I've going on exercise tomorrow, whatever. I'll take painkillers now, and there we go. I don't think I've taken a painkiller. I certainly haven't taken any pharmaceutical product for well, I don't know, seven or 8 years, let's say. But not even painkillers. And what I find interesting is that at no point, because it was absolutely a totally conscious decision, at no point across that period, of course I've hurt myself, but at no point have I even been tempted to take a painkiller or indeed anything else. So rather than, I mean, okay, I'm not saying that what Tim Noakes said to you, which is, just stop. He obviously had a plan. You then took that on. Psychologically, your mental state was changed, and that's how you're able to do it. So I think with all these things, it has to come from within. You've got to be very determined to do it, because otherwise, whether it's coming off sugar or whatever, you definitely are going to experience some effects, which if you're not prepared for that and you're not focused on where you're going, then I think it becomes very much more difficult. But I just, again, anecdotally, I just find it totally fascinating to be, having done, as I say, a number of years now without all these things that we're told we must have and that we totally dependent upon, and yet no issue at all. And again, I mean, okay, sort of slightly touch wood, but the, the idea of sort of coughs and colds, I mean, that's just it's not a thing. So, and I really do ascribe that not just to lifestyle and diet, but also just not even considering that I would be ill. I mean, okay, I'll probably fall flat on my face tomorrow, and whatever. I of course I can't predict, but just with over a number of years now, anecdotally, no dramas, and very much I'm in the mindset of, well, it's fine. I'm not scared of this. I'm not gonna catch that or get that or whatever, and that is a big part of it.
Just to add to that, because this is a fascinating part of the thing, so next year's the 20th anniversary of the column. I've been with the column for 18 years, and probably for the first several years of that, I would get a cold or a flu at Christmas. It was the same every year, because end of term comes, we're taking 2 weeks off, and all this sort of, I just would relax everything. And of course, that the next thing I was being hit with some kind of illness. That doesn't happen anymore, because I think I've decided that it's not going to happen anymore. And I think it just is fascinating to me that it was almost like I was giving myself permission to be ill at that particular moment, just because I knew I didn't have, the next day's work to do. Psychology is definitely part of what we experience with health.
Well, the segue.
Do I remember correctly? Did you? Yeah. So are you going to talk about the goat? Was that you? Did you
Me?
in 2020? Did you either?
Who are you talking about? Me
did
or-
you interview
me or Mike?
somebody, or did you? No, sorry, you, Jerm. Did you write
Goat.
or interview somebody the story about was it a goat or a lamb or something kept in a pen that was side by side with another? One looked out over, sort of looked out of a cave and saw a view. The other one could always see a wolf or something. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Okay. Anyway,
But that sounds fascinating.
It's the power of psychology, and I can't remember if. Sorry, that's really flimsy. I was hoping it was going to be you and you'd remember exactly what happened. But
I love where that's going.
The psychological effect.
Yes.
It is the psychological effect of fear, and the result of this situation was that the young goat or young sheep that could perpetually see a tethered wolf died of fear, and the other one fed and watered in exactly the same way was perfectly healthy and fine. I mean, okay, yes, one example, but you get the point. Whether or not that actually happened is sort of neither here nor there. But it does speak to this idea in particular of fear. I mean, what are we constantly having forced upon us is the idea that we should be in fear. Well, look what that does, and this is exactly what we're talking about. Either at the individual level, if you fear that you might be ill, well, lo and behold, you probably will be.
But that right there is what I was about to segue in, because that has also had a profound effect on me. Is the collection of conversations around what makes you sick, and I've done chats about German new medicine, terrain theory with Andy Kaufman and Tom Cowan.
Yeah.
They get a bit more specific about the existence of viruses, etc. But I think the underlying theme is we have a very impoverished understanding of what causes illness.
Absolutely, and in fact, given there's such sort of passionate debate either side because of the way in which people become sort of invested in a particular position, the virus, no virus thing, that by and large can be put to one side because exactly like you say, the idea is, well, I'm not, that person is not going to make me ill, and that it doesn't matter whether or not that means that you do or don't think that that viruses exist, because either that you go with the sort of the immunity model or whatever it is, but the fundamental point is that you are absolutely sort of strong in your position, that you are in the right condition and therefore you won't succumb to whatever it is.
Yeah, but it's that fear.
That's a. Yeah, well, yes, exactly. Yeah, it is of something, and it's very destructive. And I think we see more and more the link, the connection between the mental and physical thing. Because also, you remember the people who trotted off to get their. It was I can't really remember, what was it. I can't remember when all the injection stuff started, but in 2021, and then towards the end of that year, there was a sort of booster thing, and then of course everybody was ill afterwards, never putting two and two together. But what was the line on that? Was it would have been so much worse if I hadn't had But the point is that that there was a sort of double psychological thing going on there. So first of all they were convinced that they had COVID. So therefore there was an absolutely, I would say, a relationship between fear and being made to feel like you were in a position of poor health. Physically it was actually affecting you. But that was counterbalanced by the propaganda surrounding the jabs themselves. So people thought, I can't be that ill because I've had the jab. And I don't know, again, but it would be very interesting to talk to people who did sort of document their own health from, say, let's say January 2020 through till the end of 2022, and to talk about the incidents they have. Because of course, the 2020, for those who were caught up in the fear thing, was made much more fearful by the idea that there could be a vaccine, but there wasn't one yet. So, how on earth are you going to survive this terrible thing? Whereas the moment there was a vaccine and you'd had it, you were still fearful of the thing in the first place, but you were presumably mentally bolstered by the idea that there was this marvelous drug that was going to make you terribly healthy. So it's sort of, in a way, it can. Well, I mean, it does. You know, that the mental physical thing is so intertwined.
Just sorry, I don't want to divert the conversation into COVID too much, but I just want to make one point about that, about how that whole thing was simply marketing. We were told it was a novel coronavirus in parallel with being told that flu had disappeared. And we were told that flu had disappeared because everybody was getting the coronavirus, and the flu didn't have much of an opportunity to take hold. What fascinates me about this is that this year we're being told that the NHS is under massive stress because of the super flu, and it's flu, it's not coronavirus that they're claiming. But in 2020, I did get ill in 2020, and it was extremely unpleasant. It lasted about 2-3 weeks, but the symptoms were a particular type. Someone that we know very well has just apparently had this super flu, and the symptoms are pretty much the same. But that was marketed as COVID then, and now it's marketed as flu. And it's just seems to me a marketing exercise. That's what it was at the time, and that's what it still is. It's at the end of the day, as Charles is saying, it's just fear that's being marketed.
Yeah. Well, actually, just to follow that very briefly, the BBC, always good for a laugh. What I referred to earlier, the report they had this morning about why there wasn't great uptake of these marvellous flu vaccines in schools, sort of by the by, who cares? But, actually, I mean, it's great that there wasn't. But the doctor who was on the sort of live link thing was asked, I mean, it wasn't a facetious question, but it seemed to be one, you know, but is it COVID or is it flu? I mean, how do you tell the difference? And of course, she absolutely dodged the question because, the whole thing's just a confection. But it was very funny to hear the question asked and then be ducked.
Ah, come on, it's your PCR test.
No, it wasn't mentioned. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we only have a few minutes left, so I guess whatever shows I want to bring up will just be special mentions. But I don't know if either of you listened to my recent show with Adam Curry. It's one of my favorite of 2025, mainly because without him, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Joe Rogan wouldn't be doing what he's doing in many ways, because Adam largely invented podcasting. Chatting with you guys on my show has been very much a highlight. I've been really uplifted and influenced in my thinking. I've thoroughly enjoyed this last almost year on UK Column. Really enjoy having you guys on every week. Enjoyed having both of you on individually on my show. I'll probably do that again, in the new year. As we're coming for a landing, I just want to say thank you, gentlemen. I've had really good time, and I'm really looking forward to 2026 with you.
Well, I would just say thank you, Jerm, because, your interviews, I also don't agree with everything that all your guests say, but that is part of the journey that we're on. We need to be challenged. And so I enjoy it immensely. And so thank you for being part of what we're doing, because it's a massive part of what we're doing.
It is. And I think it has given us such a great range. As UK Column, quite a lot has changed this year, but
try not to be thrown off.
I've maintained professionalism at all times. I think the added dimension that your broadcasts have given is absolutely phenomenal. It cannot be, really can't be sort of overstated. And I think also for us, for Mike and I to have these sessions, I've found really valuable. I think it is great to have the chance to talk about the stuff that, frankly, going back to the beginning, talking about Christmas, people having the chance to sort of reflect and whatnot, such is the nature of a business like this, that actually it's very easy to get caught up in what's going on all the time, and not to stop and think about stuff that we might not necessarily discuss. And I think that's been a really, really worthwhile exercise for us. So I am very grateful to you for that as well. But I think for the audience, how absolutely fantastic to put forward something, in effect on the podcasting model. Yes, okay, an hour-long interview, but actually the format and the range of guests has been a completely new departure, and I think it's added masses, and I think it's been huge benefit for the audience. So yeah, we've been really lucky, and we've enjoyed it. So thank you very much indeed. And yeah, likewise, we really look forward to 2026. It's going to be a good one.
Please go to support.ukcolumn.org. With that, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'll catch you in the new year.